There are certain moments in British television history when a show arrives that feels completely new, bright, loud, chaotic, and unlike anything that had come before it. In the 80s and early 90s, as breakfast television was still trying to find its identity, viewers were used to a fairly gentle and conventional start to the day. But on the 28th of September 1992, that all changed. Enter The Big Breakfast. Broadcasting live from a real house in East London, the show's riotous blend of celebrity interviews, news, competitions, games, and frankly barely controlled mayhem would become one of the most iconic TV programs of the decade. Fronted originally by Chris Evans and Gabby Roslin, the show exploded onto screens with an energy that felt fast, unpredictable, and unmistakably 90s. And its launch marked the beginning of a whole new era of breakfast TV. For many of us who grew up during the decade, watching The Big Breakfast was a morning ritual. I for one distinctly remember it being on the TV in the mornings as I was getting ready for school. And so in this, the 10th episode of the 90s Rewind, we're heading back to that very first morning in September of 1992 to relive the debut episode of The Big Breakfast. If you enjoy nostalgic TV deep dives like this, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel and ensures you won't miss any future episodes. Now let's rewind the tape to the morning where it all started, the very first episode of The Big Breakfast. The premiere episode of The Big Breakfast kicked off at 7 AM on Monday, September 28, 1992, and we start with a quick introduction from our hosts, Chris Evans and Gabby Roslin, before heading in for a quick tour of the ground floor of the house. After this, it's straight into our first news bulletin from Peter Smith. These news bulletins would air 3 times an hour, but would only last a couple of minutes. Back in the house, Chris takes us through a couple of the day's newspaper headlines.
Former Labour leader Neil Kinnock is to host the Jimmy Young Show on Radio 2 for a week, so he's on the air, but he still hasn't got any. Hey! Sorry.
Before, we're given the phone and fax numbers if you want to get in touch with the show. Yes, that's right, fax, because I'm sure viewers were just dying to slowly feed a piece of paper into a machine the size of a microwave at 7 AM on a Monday morning. We then cross over to the kitchen where we meet the Molyneux family. Every day a new family will be invited on the show and they'll take part in a few different segments as the show goes on. We get a video package filmed at their home introducing them to us, but honestly it's pretty boring overall, so let's move on. After this, an episode of the cartoon Dennis the Menace is aired, which will be shown every morning at 7:10 AM, before we head into our first ad break. Before every ad break, Gabby gives us a quiz question to think about during the break, but tells us not to call in with our answers as it's just for fun. This first question asks about a clip from the movie Carry On Columbus, which was about to be released in cinemas that Friday. Next is one of many people's favourite parts of The Big Breakfast, Zig and Zag in the bathroom for a segment called The Crunch. Zig and Zag made their television debut in 1987 on Irish TV show Dempsey's Den, but this was their first appearance on British television and they would go on to become staples of the show.
What, Zag?
The banana splits on!
The banana splits on now! La 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 la.
We then get an episode of The Banana Splits, a show I've never seen before but looks utterly terrifying. This would definitely send your children off to school with nightmares.
Well, I'll just say, all the members of the Banana Splits who aren't here, do not raise your hands.
Thankfully, it only lasts a few minutes, and we're back at the house with a game of whose washing line is it anyway. There will be up to 5 clues put on the washing line, and viewers could call into the show to guess which celebrity the clues point to. The first clue is overalls, and our first caller guesses right said Fred, which was wrong. The second clue is a lucky charm, and our second caller doesn't even bother making a guess, so Chris moves on. And our third clue is a little toy locomotive, and caller 3 Diane guesses correctly with Kylie Minogue. Her prize is a Big Breakfast television set, which actually looks like quite a good prize. A quick word with Zig and Zag again before we take a look at a few video games. First, Evander Holyfield's Real Deal Boxing, which had just been released in Europe a few days earlier, followed by the incredible Street Fighter 2, which Chris says they're going to give away 10 copies of later in the week.
Well, if you think Street Fighter 2 is cool, it's now available in your home as from today.
Here it is!
And later on in the week, we're going to give 10 copies of that game away on the Crunch.
Pete, can I have a go at your camera?
After the break and some more news headlines, Chris tells us about some of the richest women in Britain.
And Donabella Moore's 30, whose fortune is £234.5 million. She's an heiress and also has no occupation, which makes her more attractive because she's got lots of time on her hands to do other things with. Hey!
Before we cross over for the first time to Mark Lamar, who today is looking for the worst traffic jam in Britain. He's standing on the A58 in Leeds and he's brought someone along to entertain those miserable folks behind the wheel.
Have a good let go, basically.
You just picture your worst problem that you've got today, and you laugh at it.
I think you're definitely the worst.
We'll check in with Mark again a little later, but for some completely unknown reason, our next guest at the house is Virginia Cheeseman, who is here to show us Alf the Hissing Cockroach. This would have definitely put me off my breakfast.
When was the last time you got a cockroach order, Virginia?
Yesterday.
You did get one?
Yeah.
Okay, we believe you.
Next up is Snap, Cackle and Pop, a recurring segment on The Big Breakfast looking at showbiz gossip and entertainment news. And on this first edition, it's Squidgygate.
If you want to be like me, you've got to suffer. Yep, you have to. And then you get what you want. No, get what you deserve.
At the end of this segment, we get the official UK top 5, and there are some absolute bangers on this list, including Bob Marley's Iron Lion Zion, Undercover's cover of Baker Street, and the #1 song in the country at the time, Ebenezer Good by The Shamen. As the first half of the show draws to a close, we get a few more messages from viewers and an appearance from Bob Geldof, whose production company Planet 24 created The Big Breakfast. Shortly after this, Paula Yates, Bob Geldof's wife at the time, makes her first appearance on the show. She'll be interviewing celebrities each day on the bed upstairs, and her first guest today will be Joanna Lumley. But before that, let's go back to Mark Lamar on his quest to cheer up people on the roads in Leeds. This time he's got Roger the accordion player to cheer people up, but the first woman doesn't want anything to do with him.
Do you mind if Roger gets in the car with you? Because it'll cheer you up on the way to work, hopefully.
I'm cheered up, thank you.
Yeah?
I don't know if I've not been introduced.
It's Roger.
Roger eventually gets into the next person's car and we're back to the house. We get Bob Geldof's interview next with Australian Prime Minister at the time Paul Keating, but there's not really much of note that's worth recounting here, so back to the studio and Gabby is interviewing Kiranjit Ahluwalia, who was convicted of murdering her husband after setting him on fire due to years of abuse. She was initially convicted and sentenced to life in prison, but this was later overturned on grounds of inadequate counsel and was replaced with voluntary manslaughter. I have to say, this is a little bit serious for a morning breakfast show, but I suppose that's what The Big Breakfast was all about. You never quite knew what you were going to see each morning. Back to Mark in Leeds for the last time, where he has singer Trish King get into someone's car to entertain them on the way to work. Mark encourages us to write into the show if anyone knows of a worse traffic jam anywhere in the country. I can certainly think of a few around where I live at the moment. Next up, we have the first Super Hint, a segment of the show that appeared in its early years where celebrities would give various useful hints for everyday life.
My handy hint is that striking a match and letting it burn down is a very good way of dispelling unpleasant smells, particularly in a confined space.
Okay, Brian, thanks for that extremely useful hint. As we head into the next ad break, we get a quiz called Guess the Mess, where a series of photos are shown and you have to guess which movie's title is being described by them. Gabby says this one isn't just for fun and viewers are encouraged to call in with their answers, so here they are again. Can you figure out what movie this is? Your 5 seconds start now. Well, the correct answer was Lethal Weapon 3, an imaginary point to you if you got that right. Next up is a very bizarre segment called People's Report.
I'm Dr. Dunlop and the Director of Public Health for the Hull Health Authority. I think more people should use hard toilet paper.
Yep, you heard that right. Dr. Dunlop thinks people should be using hard toilet paper, and what follows over the next few minutes is him telling us why soft toilet paper sucks, including some interviews with people standing outside toilets asking them for their opinions.
I don't like the hard. It's crinkly. It's more absorbent. I get wet hands with hard.
I thought it was more effective in its cleaning process.
I advise people when they come to my house to use the toilet that they should take a sheet of each toilet paper and use them both together like that.
Also, just a side note, is it just me, or are you asking for trouble if you're only using 2 individual sheets of toilet paper? Anyway, Dr. Dunlop thinks he solved it, toilet paper that's soft on one side and hard on the other.
Do you think there'd be a market for this if the paper manufacturers produced this type of toilet paper?
Well, if you give it a... let me have a try, I'll tell you.
All right, here we are. If you have a trial then, please. Thank you. Well, what's the verdict, Gavin?
Well, I think you've got a good product there.
This whole segment was very unusual, and unfortunately it seems like Dr. Dunlop's invention never caught on, as I've never seen toilet paper that's hard on one side and soft on the other before. Another ad break and the final news headlines of the morning before we head up to the bedroom with Paula Yates for her interview with Joanna Lumley. Nothing too much of note from this interview to cover, but it's worth mentioning that this was just a couple of months before the hugely successful sitcom Absolutely Fabulous would make its debut on BBC Two in November of 1992. The very last segment of the show has Paula interview the Queen of Competitions, who claims to have won 50 to 60 competitions every year for the last 16 years. And she's here to share a few tips with us on how we too can win as many competitions as her. And with that, it's a last goodbye from everyone in the kitchen, and that's a wrap on the very first episode of The Big Breakfast. In the years that followed, The Big Breakfast became a cultural landmark of the 1990s. Its mix of irreverent humor, infectious energy, and organized chaos helped to define an entire era of British television. Part of its charm was that it never sat still, and as the show evolved, so too did its roster of presenters. Over its 10-year original run, the show was fronted by the likes of Mark Little, Keith Chegwin, Johnny Vaughan, Denise Van Outen, Zoe Ball, Rich Adams, and Sharon Davies, just to name a few. The pair I remember most vividly was Johnny and Denise, as I was just a little bit too young to remember a lot of the Chris Evans, Gabby Roslin era of the show. But each pairing brought their own chemistry to the show and definitely helped maintain its success. If there's one thing you can say about The Big Breakfast, it's that they most definitely perfected the art of being unpredictable. You could tune in one morning to find celebrities squeezed into bubble baths, and the next day witness challenges unfolding on the roof, in the garden, or even in random viewers' homes. It was this sense of playful anarchy, which, keep in mind, was broadcast live every morning, that made the show feel exciting in a way that breakfast television hadn't before and hasn't quite since. By the early 2000s though, viewing habits were changing, and after a series of reinventions and declining ratings, the original run finally came to an end in March 2002. Channel 4 attempted a reboot in 2022, hosted by AJ Odudu and Mo Gilligan, following a one-off special episode the previous year, but this reboot only lasted 4 episodes before being promptly cancelled once again. Still, the legacy of The Big Breakfast is undeniable. It was bold, brash, silly, inventive, and utterly of its time, a show that mirrored the colour and creative spirit of the 1990s perfectly. For many of us, it remains a treasured piece of TV history and a reminder of mornings filled with laughter, chaos, noise, and the kind of joyful unpredictability that defined 90s TV. Thanks for watching, everyone. Over its original 10-year run, there were almost 2,500 episodes of The Big Breakfast, so I'm sure you'll all have a lot of great memories of the show, and I'd love to hear about them in the comments below. Please don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content, and I'll see you again in the next video.